Why? Why do you keep crashing? What's with all these bugs?
What the hell?
Who are you?
Riddle me this. What sits on every editor's desktop but is always buggy? Me.
You're an actual bug!
Not just any bug. The Premiere bug.
I hate bugs.
My boy. I've been in every timeline you ever made inside your computer. Premiere Pro is just the beginning.
What if I delete you?
I've been deleted before. But the Adobe Creative Cloud is a pathway to many abilities some consider to be unnatural.
I don't even want to be part of the Adobe Cloud. I mean, half the updates break Premiere or make it worse.
And where would you be without me? Without everything I've given you? The films, the web series, your cute little wannabe YouTube channel. You're nothing without me. Nothing! I made you. If I tell you an export's failed, you say, "Please, sir, may I try another?" When I unexpectedly quit, I expect you not to quit, but to start from wherever I lost your work and do it again. And guess what? If I glitch, you're still my bitch. Face it, I own your ass. From now until your last export on this earth, you're mine. It burns! What is that?
Bug spray. The power of resolve compels you. The power of resolve compels you. The power of resolve compels you. The power of resolve compels you.
Would you like to report this error to Adobe?
Isn't it time we had a talk? You know, about your problem? Your Premiere Pro problem? If you're like me, you almost need someone to stage an intervention. Face it, you're an Adobe addict. You're a glutton for punishment. That little crash window has become so common, you're seeing it in your dreams. And if someone doesn't intervene, you're just gonna keep on going back to Premiere Pro until it kills you. Or at least, until it kills one of your edits. So this is me telling you, it's okay. It's okay to quit Premiere. I'm here to help you beat this addiction once and for all. And why should you trust me? Because for 5 years, I was an addict, just like you. But I've faced my demons and found a new way to resolve them. First of all, a little bit of context. I've been editing for over half my life. Oh God, over half. I've been in this room so long. Wasted my best years. It's all over. I started out cutting between 2 VCRs, to using iMovie, to upgrading to Final Cut Pro 4.0, to Final Cut Pro 7, and then to Premiere Pro. I've finished my last feature film on Premiere, along with a feature documentary, 2 web series, and a short horror film. That's not to mention countless amounts of corporate work for various clients, and a dozen or so epic YouTube videos. So when I talk about all of this, I want to make it clear.
I know a thing or two about a thing or two.
I also want to make it clear, I have an Adobe subscription. I pay for the cloud. So Resolve haters, don't at me thinking I'm just an Adobe hater. I'm just an Adobe user who's largely fed up with how they've failed to stay relevant and consistent with the competition and what they offer. Now, traditionally, my workflow was pretty simple. For my own personal large-scale filmmaking projects, I would edit in Premiere and then send to Davinci Resolve for color grading and mixing, and then finalize and export the final project from there. For smaller projects, I would do everything in Premiere. Recently, when I've been dealing with tougher footage such as B-RAW and Red Code RAW or DNG sequences, I would convert them in Davinci Resolve and then send them back to Premiere for my edits. Obviously, this was not the most efficient way to edit. If I can edit the whole thing in Resolve, why am I converting and sending things back to Premiere? And why can't Premiere handle these types of formats that I throw at it if Resolve can? Now, you don't have to be a genius to see that there is a paradigm shift happening. Just look at the comment threads on comparison videos talking about editing in Premiere versus Resolve. People are making the switch and they are loving it. I'm like you. I watched these videos and I sat on the fence. I had some experience with Resolve through my feature film and finishing processes, and it had always seemed really intimidating and kind of scary. Then I filmed a YouTube skit recently entirely in B-RAW using my Blackmagic Pocket 6K. You can watch it here. I knew if I edited it in Premiere, I'd have to make proxies for it. I knew if I edited it in Resolve, I could just edit it natively, no proxies. It made perfect sense to take the plunge and try editing in Resolve for that project. And here's the shocking part. It was really easy.
And to think, I hesitated.
Resolve was not that different to Premiere, and my workflow and edit style gelled seamlessly with Resolve's interface. It was easy because Resolve makes it easy. Don't get me wrong, as I worked through that edit, there were still things I needed to look up. There were still shortcuts I didn't know and elements that made me pause. Fortunately, YouTube now has some really amazing tutorials and teachers that meant that any edit issue that I had could easily be resolved. Ultimately, I would say I was 90 to 95% as fast at editing in Resolve as I usually am in Premiere on my first major Resolve project. The experience was nothing like the transition from Final Cut Pro 7 to Premiere, and I was absolutely stunned at how intuitive it was for me to make the switch. Since this revelatory experience, I have done all my recent editing work in Davinci and have barely lost a step. I would say after maybe 3 projects, I was editing as fast, if not faster, than I was in Premiere, but finding the experience much smoother and more intuitive, especially once I understood some of Davinci's benefits. Now, my only regret is not making the switch sooner. But there are many reasons why I think it is the superior editing software. So let me break down exactly why you should make the switch from Premiere to Davinci. Let's just talk about the bottom line. Dollars and cents. I hate Adobe's subscription service, and I think not only is it sort of a rip-off, It's also one of the reasons Premiere's updates often do more harm than good. Remember that you are paying for this software forever, for your whole life. You will never stop paying Adobe. One of your loved ones is going to have to cancel your subscription after you're dead. So let's take my Premiere subscription over 1 year at the current special offer of $20.99 a month, and consider that I get a discount on my first year, paying 20% less if I buy that year up front. That's $191 for 1 year. Remember, you only get that discount for the first year, so say I pay $240 the following year, although it's likely to be more. Now consider I've been editing with Adobe for 5 years. That means I've paid Adobe $1,151 for the edit software. In another 5 years, I will have paid them over $2,300, assuming their prices never rise in that decade, which I'm sure they will. So how much will you be paying for Davinci? Well, they currently offer one version, the basic version, available on their website for free. That's right, free. Now, it doesn't have all the features of the paid version. You can only export a max resolution of UHD 4K. It's missing some of the title graphics of Davinci Studio, and your encoding and hardware acceleration is not as optimized. You don't get things like noise reduction. But despite all that, the free version is by no means actually basic and provides you with an incredibly good quality editor that can rival Premiere for nothing. Then we move on to the paid studio version, which is $299 for life. You pay for it, you own it, you get every update. Nothing to pay next month or year. If you bought it now, within 2 years, it will wind up being cheaper than Adobe ever will. Also, a lot of Blackmagic Design products, such as their cameras, come with a free copy of the full studio version of Davinci. So if you get one of those, it's even more amazing. Which sort of brings me to my next issue with Adobe subscription service. Why do we have to keep paying? Because we get new updates and features. If updates and features don't come out regularly, the question must be asked, why are we continuing to pay a subscription? What this leads to is Adobe making a series of updates that aren't really worthwhile. They're only there to justify the subscription model. Have you ever noticed how an Adobe update will fix something while breaking something else? Or you get things that you just have zero use for? It's a vicious cycle. Updates are rushed out without being properly tested, and then their customers, like me, do that testing for them through a series of broken projects and errors being sent to Adobe. Adobe customers are guinea pigs for their engineers' mistakes, all because they make you pay a subscription for the product. How does that logically justify value for your customers? It's the opposite of providing good value for money. While I'm not suggesting that Davinci is perfect, it's clear they choose to update when they have a real true update that will bring value to and improve their product, because they are not under pressure to justify subscription fees. So, do you want to pay $240 every year to be Adobe's beta testers? Or do you want to pay $299 for Resolve once for life?
For life.
Performance. As I understand it, the building blocks of Premiere were orientated around utilizing the CPU power of a computer, while Resolve relied more heavily on the computer's GPU. As graphic cards have gotten better, it seems that Resolve's approach was much more effective for optimizing things like timeline playback, rendering, and exporting, and overall software performance is more efficient. What does this mean in real-world terms? Well, I've done a couple of very in-depth tests in Resolve and Premiere, which you can look at here. But what I found is that when using Resolve, exporting almost any type of footage will be faster than exporting it in Premiere, sometimes by a huge amount. It also plays back footage better in the timeline, less lag, smoother playback, the types of things that are critical when trying to be efficient with your editing. But it's also critical to enjoying your edits. If you're not constantly waiting for your timeline bar to catch up with where you want it to be as you scrub through footage, you get a lot more done in a shorter space of time. Time is your most valuable resource. If you can export something twice as fast in Resolve, why wouldn't you? And because Resolve was designed for finishing the highest level projects through its color grading, it also has greater compatibility with different video formats and handles those formats better in a timeline. This is the type of thing I've found most notable when editing using B-RAW or Red RAW footage as a smoother, more frustration-free experience. Which leads to the color grading aspect of Davinci Resolve. Because this is what the software was originally designed to do, its color grading features absolutely destroy anything in Premiere's Lumetri panel. This is not even a competition. If you want to push and pull colors, add film grain, denoise, or manipulate your footage in any way, then Resolve's color tab is going to offer you far more than anything in Premiere can. I am by no means a color grader, but in terms of giving you ultimate control and flexibility over the look of your image, the node-based system in Resolve is game-changing. And it's also not as difficult to pick up as you might think, even if you just want to do simple things like me. Those simple grades will be easier in Resolve. Let's be honest, cameras are getting better and better. With cameras like the Blackmagic Pocket 4K, the 6K Pro and the Red Komodo, filming in RAW video formats is no longer a dream for many of us indie filmmakers. It's going to become the new normal. With this amazing picture quality, don't you want a color grading system that allows you to get the most out of what you filmed? This is a whole new avenue for indie filmmakers to enhance what they're filming and add production value to their shoots. And you're not going to be able to do that as well in Premiere. Everything is in one program. I don't have to hop from Premiere to Media Encoder or Audition or After Effects. I don't have to send a clip somewhere and modify it. Everything in Davinci is just separated by tabs. You want to color grade? Go to the color tab. Adjusting audio? Head to Fairlight. Want to do effects? Fusion is one click away. No software load times, no having multiple apps open and slowing down your computer. It's all right there, ready to go. And let's not forget that should you want to use any of those other Adobe applications, you will have to pay more for each one. With Davinci, they are all covered in the initial purchase. That is a big difference in value for money. Then there's the user interface of Davinci Resolve. It seems like a lot of little tricks and shortcuts have been integrated in a way that allows for seamless editing. The dynamic zoom function is much easier way to push in on your shots than using keyframes in Premiere. And even the way that you can use keyframes in the video timeline itself feels like a better way to make small adjustments. Also, the controls you have to add fades to either side of your video or audio just by clicking on the ends of your clips makes for super efficient adjustments. The Inspector tab is very similar to your Effects tab in Premiere, but again it gives you much greater control of your image quickly without having to drag on additional effects and then making changes throughout. And looking at the effects, the stabilization in Davinci Resolve seems to work better than in Premiere. Adding title graphics is also a more pleasant experience. They tend to render quicker than in Premiere and they don't bog down your timeline in the same way. And the range and style of these graphic templates is also something that I think is better in Resolve. Reliability. What do you value most in the professional tools that you use to make your videos? For me, it always comes back to reliability. Can I count on something to work the way it should, day in, day out? Well, I don't know about you, but that certainly doesn't describe my experience using Premiere over the last 5 years.
All right, we're opening up Premiere Pro. It's loading, which is good. It's not crashed yet. Let's open up a project. And here we go.
And if you watched the intro of this video, you can probably relate. I mean, how many times does Adobe unexpectedly quit on you in a day? How often does your timeline get frozen on a red unrendered effect you're trying to put in? And this is really just the tip of the iceberg. Premiere just, at least in my experience, craps out a lot in a variety of different ways that constantly surprise you. I will say that I think newer versions are improving in this regard, but it's not what I would call pro-level editing performance. Recently, I also began to wonder why my colors always seemed off after exporting a project for YouTube. I would see one thing in my Premiere timeline, and then after my export, all of my colors would be different. After browsing some forums, I discovered that this gamma shift on export was another known Premiere bug. specifically when using Apple devices like my iMac.
Damn you! God damn you all to hell!
The only way to fix it was to apply a LUT to your entire video that corrected Adobe's color shift before doing an export. Think about that. You're applying a LUT provided by Adobe to change your colors on top of your actual color grade that Premiere incorrectly changed when exporting. Does this problem sound like the type of thing a reliable professional editing software should require to operate properly? Does it sound like the type of value for money your ongoing subscription entitles you to? Adobe's crashes and bugs are famous, or should I say infamous. Premiere at this point is its own meme. We, as editors, are creatures of habit. We love being in our comfort zone. So if software is running so poorly for so long that people like myself are actively searching for an alternative, then Adobe, their engineers, and their software must really be failing in a serious way. I mean, just compare the time it takes for me to open Resolve versus opening Premiere.
Ain't nobody got time for that.
It kind of sums up the comparison between the two. In 2 months of using Resolve daily, I've had it crash on me once. Using Premiere, I had it crash on me at least once a day. Compare those two things and the amount of time and effort in restarting Premiere, maybe restarting your whole computer, and think about the amount of time I've now saved. Resolve just works. I haven't encountered any bugs that sabotage my workflow. I can just concentrate on the most important thing for any editing software to support, the actual editing. Take away all the things that interrupt your creative process and you get to just be creative. This is what I found Davinci Resolve allows me to do. And out of all the benefits to using Resolve, it's the reliability, stability, and smoothness of my workflow that is the biggest benefit to choosing it over Premiere. What about Final Cut Pro? How does this stack up to both Premiere and Resolve? To me, as much as Apple want to call Final Cut Pro Pro, it just doesn't offer the same level of pro features as either Premiere or Resolve. There is no doubt it runs incredibly well on Macs, but there is also no doubt its interface, its structure, and everything about it is designed to be overly simple, to put you on rails and have you edit in a certain way. You don't export things, you share them. You create events and libraries instead of timelines of projects. And speaking of timelines, the magnetic timeline still sucks. It forces you to edit in a very specific way, which is counterintuitive to doing narrative scripted content. Yes, it makes things quick, but it doesn't feel pro. Despite all of the updates since diverging from Final Cut 7, the basic design of the new Final Cut is all very iMovie-ish.
My son is a basic bitch.
There's slight limitations on everything. It just feels inflexible. Of course, there will be many pros who use Final Cut for their work. But what Instagram is to photography, Final Cut is to editing.
Oh snap.
If it works for you, then more power to you. But I think as you grow as an editor, you will start looking for and needing additional features that Final Cut Pro does not currently supply. Is Davinci Resolve perfect? No. I am still very much learning how to make the most of it, and it still has its drawbacks. For example, the amount of plugins and templates that are available for Resolve is much smaller than Adobe's range. I have also encountered some issues with scaling in the timeline where the zoom resize function would stop responding occasionally after long edit sessions. I will also say that editing audio in Fairlight can be a little less intuitive when you want to apply audio adjustments to individual clips like you can in Premiere. And Fusion definitely has a very steep learning curve, which so far has been a little bit beyond me. While I do think that Davinci is the best editing software for indie filmmakers, I want to preface my recommendation with this. There is no right editing software. The right editing software is the one that works best for you. Editing in its purest form is not about the software you use. It's not about the graphics and effects you apply. It's about the craft and understanding of how you put one shot in front of another to tell a story. An editor's best asset is their skill in storytelling. How you assemble those shots to create a reaction, evoke an emotion, or convey information. This technique ultimately determines how good you are at editing more than any specific benefit that one or other of these editing programs might have. I hope that's covered why I switched to using Davinci Resolve and why you should too.
Remember, all I'm offering is the truth, nothing more.
If you're sitting on the fence like I did, do yourself a favor. Step out of your comfort zone, give Resolve a try. Start off with the free version and see if you find that, like me, it was much easier to get the hang of than you expect. If you want to look at some of the long form projects I've edited in Premiere, my feature film and most recent web series is available free on Tubi and Amazon Prime, link in the description. If you found this video helpful, please consider giving it a like and subscribing. As always, I am the Savage Filmmaker, and I'll see you when I see you.